Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about this week's latest big action movie, Mile 22, which is Peter Berg's new movie starring Mark Wahlberg, big surprise there, Lauren Cohen, and Ronda Rousey. And just as a warning, later in the review there is going to be spoilers, because there is some things that I need to discuss with this one. When the options of diplomacy in the military don't work, that's when you call on option 3, Overwatch. When chemical weapons go missing, it's up to Overwatch to find them before they are used in an attack. When one of Overwatch's contacts turn themselves in, wanting asylum in exchange for the attack locations, they do not have a choice but to get him out of the country. Okay, so I was pretty excited about this movie. I have, at the very least, enjoyed director Peter Berg's work with Mark Wahlberg. I enjoyed movies like Patriots Day and Deepwater Horizon, and I loved Lone Survivor. He also had a hand at writing all 3 of those movies, plus he co-wrote one of my all-time favorite movies, The Losers. That being said, he did direct Battleship, but he didn't write it, so there you go. I think that might have been one of the problems here with Mile 22, though, as well. Berg did not write this movie, and its story and dialogue is one of its many issues. While I did have a ton of issues with the movie, I'll give it credit where credit is due. If this movie does have one bright spot, it would be the action. All of it is hard-hitting and brutally violent and bloody. Some of that action is helped because, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, Iko Uwais is in this movie. If you have seen the amazing action movies The Raid Redemption and The Raid 2, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. He gets to do a couple of really great fight scenes in this movie. Speaking of the Raid movies, I don't think I've ever wanted to leave a movie so bad to go watch the Raid movies than I did watching Mile 22. Another thing that got a few chuckles out of me was some of the humor. There was a few lines dropped here and there that got a laugh out of me, such as when Wahlberg, his character, was talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, more on that in a bit, to the villain, and John Malkovich's character called him out for monologuing. There isn't a ton of humor that worked in this movie, but the little bit that it did have, there's a little bit of it that did, and what did was pretty funny. The editing in this movie is a spastic mess. I know that they were trying to keep the audience on edge the entire time, but the movie barely found time to breathe with just how fast-paced everything felt. Quick cuts, shaky cam, filters, etc. It was messy. Even the action, which again I had some fun with, was kind of a sloppy mess too, especially with shaky cam and the quick cuts. The characters weren't the greatest. Most of them were just filling a role, so to speak. Ronda Rousey, John Malkovich, and other minor characters were just doing their part, if you know what I'm saying. They did try to have some stories for Mark Wahlberg and Lauren Cohen's characters, but in the end, those stories just didn't matter at all. Cohen's character is going through a divorce and is fighting her husband, played by director Peter Berg, by the way, for their daughter, but has to be on call for Overwatch like all the time. Oh, and Lauren Cohen's character likes to drop the F-bomb a lot. Wahlberg's character, James Silva, is, let's just say, different. The whole credits for this movie is basically a setup for the character, in which they reveal that his mind is just always processing. They had a name for his disorder, but I don't really remember what it was. In a way, his character reminded me of Ben Affleck's from The Accountant, but way more volatile. They weren't saying he had that Wahlberg's character had autism. It was something else, but just the way he acted, the way his mind worked, kind of reminded me of that character. But then again, he seemed a lot more on edge all the time. He's constantly talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and you get the picture. It was interesting for about a minute, but got old real quick. Here and there, it led to some good humor, but mostly it's kind of annoying. Speaking of annoying, the effing rubber band. You see, Silva, when he was a kid, was told that when he couldn't stop his mind from racing, when he couldn't calm himself, he was to snap a rubber band on his wrist. And Wahlberg's character does this a lot in this movie, like almost all the time. A lot. It gets flat out annoying hearing that snapping noise through half the movie, and I mean, it gets annoying real quick. The plot of this movie is really predictable. It's so predictable it's not even funny. Before I continue, this is where the spoilers are probably going to happen, so I'll just throw out that warning. For those not wanting this one spoiled, I'll just say that I don't really recommend this movie. Not even for a dumb, fun action film. If you must see it, definitely wait for rental or Netflix. For me, the good didn't even come close to outweighing the bad. I didn't hate the movie, but I didn't like it either. Okay, it's spoiler time. Still with me? Okay, here we go. At the beginning of this movie, Overwatch has this mission where they're raiding this house, and the mission goes bad. They then show news reports that a 17 or 18-year-old boy died during the things that happened in this mission. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this death will have something to do with the main plot, even though they kind of forget about it for most of the movie. One of the bad guys on the plane that has the chemical weapons is a woman that doesn't look like she belongs there. Right as I saw her, I guessed that it was the mom of the boy that died. And I was completely right. She was some powerful politician or something like that. So of course she had connections. The plot isn't really just a terrorist plot, but it is really it's really been created to draw Overwatch out, and so they can find a way to where she can get her revenge on them. It's also not hard to figure out that the contact that turned himself in was gonna turn on Overwatch. His whole story is the tried and true, you have to trust me, come on, trust me, I can help. You know the kind of turncoat character I'm talking about. You see it coming just so far away. You see it coming a mile away, or in this case, you see it coming 22 miles away. Before I get to the next part, I have to mention that when they are on missions, Overwatch's in-field code names are Child 1, Child 2, and so on and so forth. John Malkovich's character, his in-field code name, or in-office code name in the case of his character, is Mother. Remember that. When they get the contact delivered, before he gets on the plane, he turns to Wahlberg's character and says, and I'm not making this up, say hi to your mother for me. You know, like the SNL sketch with Andy Samberg. It was at this moment when I began to wonder if this movie was just trolling me. Of course, the contact is referring to Malkovich's character, which is about to be killed along with all the other members of Overwatch that are not named James Silva. Of course, the movie ends on a cliffhanger that has Silva threatening that he's coming after the contact turned triple agent. Oh goody. And by the way, the writer of this movie has already been tapped to write the sequel already. Oh double goody. Again, I don't really recommend this movie. There are better Peter Berg movies out there like Lone Survivor to watch instead of this. There are better team action movies like The Losers, which is written by Peter Berg, out there to watch instead of this one as well. While the action is good, the rest of the movie is not worth sitting through. It's definitely a rental or Netflix watch at best, and I think I'm being rather generous. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and if you have anything to say about this movie, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds, and say hi to your mother for me.